This is VOA Africa.
Good evening, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Wednesday, February 19th. This is Africa 54. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo pushes Washington's ability to stimulate growth and entrepreneurship in Africa as he wrapped up a three-day tour of the continent. Nigerian traders face business threats as many industries in China remain closed due to the coronavirus outbreak. And a new program strives to help women students in technology feel less isolated. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is pushing Washington's ability to stimulate growth and entrepreneurship in Africa as he wrapped up a three-day tour of the continent that saw him in Senegal, Angola, and Ethiopia. VOA State Department correspondent Cindy Sain is traveling with Secretary Pompeo, and she has our report.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo had his second day in Ethiopia, where he first went to a privately owned co-working space called Blue Space, where he again met with women entrepreneurs, as he has at all three of his stops in Africa. And they talked to him about their businesses and their ideas. After that, Secretary Pompeo went to the UN Economic Commission, where he gave a speech on liberating entrepreneurs in Africa. And he cautioned against, saying South Africa, for example, is contemplating nationalizing some land or businesses. And he said that is not the way to go. We know that private enterprise and small businesses and the dignity of work is what really brings success.
Centralized planning hasn't worked. Look at the failed socialist experiments of years past in Zimbabwe, in Tanzania, and right here in Ethiopia. Even now, even as we stand here today, South Africa is debating an amendment to permit the expropriation of private property without compensation. That would be disastrous for that economy, and most importantly for the South African people.
And Secretary Pompeo stressed that the reason that he chose the three countries that he did, Senegal and Angola and Ethiopia, is that the people there are demanding change and their leaders are responding.
Everyone in this room know the right way forward. Basic, strong rule of law, respect for property rights, regulation that encourages investment. We talked about that with these entrepreneurs this morning. You need to get the basic laws right so that investors can come and invest their capital. We also need women's full participation in this economic liberations. And we need governments that respect their own people. These are the fundamental ingredients for true, inclusive, sustainable economic liberation.
He said it was a fantastic visit and that he was even more optimistic after having visited than he was before.
The Asian tigers lifted themselves up in a span of just a few decades because they liberalized and they opened for trade. That can happen right here too. And indeed, I would argue that it must.
Cindy Sain, VOA News, Saudi Arabia.
A brazen attack by al-Shabaab terrorists killed at least 12 Somali soldiers on Wednesday. The militants also captured a military base southwest of Mogadishu, according to Somali officials. Authorities say the suicide bomber detonated explosives at the Salini base as gunmen stormed in and briefly occupied the facility before the military recaptured the base. The assault underscores the insurgents' ability to launch attacks despite a government offensive. Al-Shabaab has been fighting the UN-backed Somali government for more than a decade in a bid to impose their strict version of Islamic law. Now, Kenya's media is also reporting a suspected al-Shabaab attack on a public bus in Mandera, a northern part of the country. The bus was headed to Nairobi. Mandera County Commissioner Onesmus Chatha told Kenya's Daily Nation newspaper that at least 3 passengers were killed in the attack. The bus company's management says the vehicle's tires were sprayed with bullets as the driver sped off, only to be met with more gunfire from the terrorists. Now to the latest on the coronavirus. Beijing authorities announced Wednesday that the death toll from the COVID-19 outbreak has topped 2,000, with most of the deaths reported in Hubei province. 6 people outside mainland China have now died from the virus. The latest is a 70-year-old man in Hong Kong. Health officials worldwide are frantically battling to prevent the spread of the virus. VOA's Julie Tabo has more.
China has now reported more than 72,000 cases of the coronavirus, including more than 1,800 deaths.
At the moment, we don't have enough data on cases outside China to make a meaningful comparison on the severity of disease or the case fatality rate. We're following up with countries to get more information about what happens about each case and the outcome.
The WHO Director General said it's crucial for impacted countries to be transparent and share information with the World Health Organization so it can help.
These signals show the importance of all countries being ready for the arrival of the virus, to treat patients with dignity and compassion, to protect health workers, and to prevent onward transmission.
Professor Eileen Marty says the reaction by some governments has been inconsistent.
Some governments have been more strict, some less. Some have imposed trade barriers, some have imposed travel barriers, and the degree of those barriers differ by the different places and their own capacities.
Regarding the spread of the virus on the docked Japanese Diamond Princess cruise ship, Michael Ryan, executive director of the WHO Health Emergency Program, says there have been more transmissions than expected.
It's an unfortunate event occurring on the ship, and we trust that the authorities in Japan and the governments who are taking back people will be able to follow up those individuals in the appropriate way to ensure that they get the appropriate care if they are cases, and if not, that they are reintegrated into their communities.
And while vaccine development is important, experts say it's not necessarily a top priority at the moment.
We all want to invest in the vaccine as a long-term solution, but there are people sick now, and there are health systems that are vulnerable now. So we need to balance our investments and invest in the weaker health systems, on our own systems, and then we do the other things and we develop the vaccine.
We have to make sure that that vaccine doesn't hurt you. So safety studies, and that takes time. That takes at least a month or 3 months to put people, to have volunteers use that and see people who aren't even exposed and see if they have any risk.
Julie Tabo, VOA News, Washington.
The coronavirus outbreak in China is affecting businesses in Nigeria, where thousands of merchants travel to China each year to import products. But Nigerian authorities are stepping up their monitoring and are calling on travelers to restrict travel to China until the virus is contained. Timothy Obiezu reports from Abuja.
Abuja trader Osita Chukwu started his furniture and generator business 20 years ago. He imports most of his wares from China and typically travels there several times a year to close deals or purchase products from manufacturers. But now, the coronavirus is affecting business as usual, and he's running out of stock.
So for now, the goods are no more coming as supposed to be coming as it used to become before. So and it's affecting us very well, you understand? And the ones we have on ground, we have to add a little more on it to sell, because if you sell at the rate you bought before, I want to buy another one. Even the one that you have ordered before, it cannot come in now, because everywhere about it now is closed. You get me, ba? So, but we are believing God and praying that very soon, when they open it, things will start moving normal.
There are other traders like Chukwu in this market called Neighborhood Center in the Abuja city. Nigeria and China are big trade partners. In 2018, Nigeria imported about $7 billion worth of goods from China. Development economist Emeka Okengwu says the coronavirus impact on trade between Nigeria and China should be temporary.
It could have some little impact, if you may, okay, because there are some deals you need to close eyeball to eyeball, that might not happen, especially, in some areas of China, okay, but it's not going to stop international businesses. It will affect some part of it, no doubt, but it's not going to be sustained.
China accounts for 15% of the global GDP, with many economies, including Nigeria, depending on it. D.K. Prince, the Abuja chapter president of the Nigeria Association of Small-Scale Industrialists, wants Nigeria to increase its production capacity in order to reduce dependence on imports.
What affects China affects Nigeria automatically in 100%. No. It's supposed not to be like that. What will affect if we are producing and have some strange of things that we are producing? All those things, virus or no virus, we must move ahead.
China has a growing number of nationals working and living in Nigeria. That's one reason the World Health Organization has listed Nigeria as one of 12 high-risk countries in Africa facing the coronavirus threat. Authorities responded by issuing a travel advisory to citizens and strengthening surveillance at borders and ports. China's ambassador to Nigeria says both governments are working together to prevent any coronavirus outbreak.
Fighting the spread of epidemic is a common concern of the international community. China is willing to work with other countries in the world, including Nigeria, to respond to the epidemic actively.
Until the virus is contained, businessmen like Osita may have a hard time doing business unless they seek alternatives. Timothy Obiezu for VOA News, Abuja.
Francis Muhuza is an engineer and budding farmer in Uganda who saw an opportunity to make a living growing garlic in Zimbabwe. But there's one problem. The markets are already flooded with Chinese garlic, creating uneven competition with garlic growers outside of Africa. VOA's Ayen Dengbyor has more.
Francis Muhumuza is hard at work. It's planting season on his 7-acre farm in Zimbabwe, and he's getting his soil ready to plant garlic. The engineer turned farmer says he has all the right conditions to reap a good harvest.
Ours is organic. We don't bleach our garlic. We use hands in plant. We do hand planting. Basically, we are local and we do it in a local way. And our soil, we don't spray any chemicals and dangerous chemicals in our soil.
Despite the rich soil and agreeable weather conditions for garlic growing, Muhumuza says less than 15% of the garlic used in the country is grown in Uganda. The majority is shipped from China and brought by importers who bring it to a storage unit like this one before it is distributed to the markets.
Importers opt to go in to import garlic from China because we cannot satisfy the market. And that's the only biggest problem that we have right now. We don't have enough capacity to produce for the country.
Like many others in this market, these cloves of garlic were grown in China. The retailer here tells us she bought this pack for 170,000 shillings. She plans to sell it for 240,000 shillings. That's about a $20 profit. The average farmer in Uganda makes about 6 times less than that. Muhumuza says an uptick in imports, particularly garlic, means that he is being driven out of the market. The overwhelming amount of Chinese garlic undercuts his bottom line, making it harder for him to provide jobs. The agriculture industry employs about 70% Ugandans, and it is a major lifeline for people who depend on it to make a modest living.
In a day, I make about 10,000 shillings. I work from 7 to 1.
The upward trade trend is similar across the continent and is welcomed by leaders who say the relationship is mutually beneficial.
As a country, we are very keen to seeing a deepening of the trade between our two countries.
For now, Muhumuza says he plans to continue to grow his business, hoping that the local connections he has will help him turn a profit. Ayen Dengbyor, VOA News, Washington.
You're watching Africa 54, and we'll be right back.
Chibwana chimalata, chibwana chimalata, ungakhala pabwino, boyi papa maitana. Chibwana chimalata, ungakhala panchito, ulova umakodola. Chibwana chimalata, ungakhala pabanja, umbeta umaitana.
I'm Clara Frank, and here's what's trending. Tunisian blacksmith Mohamed Kreiti has been welding steel pieces to create elaborate works of art for nearly 4 decades, turning him into the king of steel art. In the northeastern city of Nablus, he uses metal pieces discarded by mechanics, who are usually happy to give them out for free. He even recycles pieces from old cars and bikes once driven by his clients. The prices of his pieces range between $35 to $5,000, depending on the size of the piece. His fame extends well beyond his small town. He has customers from Germany, France, Italy, and Belgium coming to his workshop to buy gifts. Next up, Yusuf Kamara is a former gang leader from Sierra Leone's Giverdam Gaza gang in the slums of Freetown. After quitting the gang 3 years ago, 27-year-old Kamara now hopes his journey to acclaim as a poet can offer an example to other wayward youths in Freetown, where increasing numbers are joining gangs modeled on the Bloods and Crips of Los Angeles. Kamara has been published in several international poetry magazines and was invited last year to attend the African Writers' Conference in Kenya. He owes his dramatic turnaround to the Way Out Arts, a charity and media center co-founded in 2008 by Hazel Chandler, an English filmmaker, to train homeless and underprivileged youths and give them a voice. And finally, stop swiping and get to dating. That's the message from leaders in the dating app field. Many of today's daters are getting tired of endless swiping and want to get out there and meet people face to face. Dating apps are responding with new and innovative ways to get their users off their phones and meet people in the real world. By curating and looking for people who are more serious about dating, as well as hosting events in cities across the world, the Inner Circle hopes to get people offline and into long-term relationships. The app boasts over 2 million members in more than 39 cities. The founder of the app says he saw a shift in online dating attitudes towards the end of the decade as people became Tinder tired. And that's what's trending today.
The South Sudan Council of Ministers on Wednesday adopted President Salva Kiir's decision to return the country to a system of 10 states with the addition of 3 administrative areas. The action comes ahead of Saturday's deadline to form a unity government. The ministers have directed Justice Minister Paulino Wanawila to amend the provisions of the revitalized peace deal and to incorporate the 10 states plus 3 administrative areas into the transitional constitution, according to government spokesperson Michael Makuei. Makuei says after the cabinet has amended the constitution, President Salva Kiir will sign it into law on Friday. Uganda is battling desert locusts that are threatening the livelihoods of millions of people. The government is spending more than $5 million to combat the locusts, which are entering the country from neighboring Kenya. Uganda last experienced a major locust invasion more than 70 years ago, which caused immense damage to crops. The UN Food and Agriculture Organization says the desert locust is considered to be the most destructive migratory pest in the world. In other political news, 6 U.S. Democratic candidates are gathering Wednesday in Nevada for the 9th debate in the race to be the party's nominee to oppose U.S. President Donald Trump in November's general election. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders and former South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg enter the debate fresh off strong performances in Iowa and New Hampshire, the first two states to make their selections in the nominating contest. Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar is looking to ride momentum from a surprise third-place finish in New Hampshire into the debate and Saturday's caucus in Nevada. Former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg, a late addition to the contest, will be on the debate stage for the first time Wednesday after surging in the national polls while spending hundreds of millions of dollars of his own money on the campaign. Since his acquittal by the U.S. Senate, President Donald Trump has targeted those who stood against him during his impeachment, extended favors to allies, and continued bulking up his administration with loyalists. White House correspondent Patsy Widakuswara looks at what the president is doing to consolidate power as he heads into a re-election fight.
In front of cheering fans, Donald Trump took the Beast, the armored presidential limousine, for a lap around the Daytona 500 racetrack over the weekend, a first in American history.
The bold move, and this has characterized his entire public life since he was a private citizen.
Trump's bold moves recently also include pressuring federal prosecutors to reduce prison time for his longtime political advisor Roger Stone, who was found guilty of lying to investigators, obstructing Congress, and witness intimidation in the case of Russian meddling in the 2016 U.S. election.
He was treated very badly. 9 years recommended by 4 people that perhaps they were Mueller people. I don't know who they were, prosecutors.
Presidents rarely comment on pending cases to avoid giving the impression they are influencing the legal process. But Trump has broken with such precedents. Trump also touted his firing of the U.S. ambassador to European Union, Gordon Sondland, and Alexander Vindman, director for European Affairs at the National Security Council. Both men testified against the president during his impeachment trial.
His conduct after his acquittal really confirms people's worst fears about him, which is that he doesn't really have the temperament that people would like to have in a president. People are not looking for a president who's vindictive in his conduct and behavior.
The president's supporters reject such criticisms and say he is rewarding political loyalists as all presidents do, purging the National Security Council of Obama-era personnel and bringing back former Communications Director Hope Hicks as counselor to the president and former personal assistant John McEntee to oversee the Presidential Personnel Office.
He wants to surround himself with people he trusts, and try to limit the exposure to people who he does not know or to people who have been part of the bureaucracy, which we've seen opposes him at every juncture since he became president.
Trump is also betting the strong economy will help secure his re-election, even if some supporters are turned off by his blunt personal style.
Nobody makes the case of the problems with President Trump's character better than President Trump himself. That people see that every day. And in our polling, we know that there's a substantial chunk of voters who say, I kind of agree with him on the issues, but I don't like the way he conducts himself.
With the election more than 8 months away, Trump is already campaigning aggressively and stockpiling funds, with $200 million already in the bank and campaign-related travel every week. Patsy Widakuswara, VOA News at the White House.
In our technology report, women and minorities pursuing computer science degrees in the U.S. often feel alone and isolated, since the field is overwhelmingly dominated by men. But an innovative program initiated by a global nonprofit in partnership with universities across America is making impressive gains in helping to boost those numbers. VOA's Julie Tabo again with more.
Hi, I'm Jack.
Jacqueline Dupre says she's always loved computer science.
And the more computer science classes I took, the more I kind of fell in love with it.
Dupre says she especially enjoys working on projects that can be applied to the real world.
And I'm able to kind of combine that with my love for business and business analytics, saying, how can we use all this data that we've now collected to make strategic business decisions?
Dupre is a senior at the University of Maryland, where she's majoring in computer science, as well as operations management and business analytics. She credits much of her success to a collaboration between her school and AnitaB.org, a global nonprofit that's helping to advance women in technology. Stephanie Rodriguez is Vice President of Policy and Engagement for the organization.
We work with the University of Maryland and 14 other institutions on an annual basis through a project that we called BRAID. It stands for Building, Recruiting, and Inclusion in Diversity. And it really focuses on a few strategies that leaders in undergraduate computer science departments can take to build more inclusive campuses.
The organization's flagship event is the annual Grace Harper Celebration, which is the world's largest gathering of women in technology. Dupre was one of more than 26,000 people who attended the celebration in Florida last year.
Through attending that conference, I think I was able to really recognize this passion in me and to know that there are other people who are fighting the same fight, who are also striving for equality.
Jan Plain is a faculty member in the Computer Science Department and the director of the Maryland Center for Women in Computing at the university.
We were working as a small organization, the Center for Women, trying to improve the culture for the women that are here. And what BRAID did was bring a more national and upper-level administration emphasis to it.
Today, the school has the largest number of undergraduates in its computer science program in the country.
We have increased since 2014, when we had around 300 women in our computer science program, to now 738 who are majoring in computer science.
Plain says in today's job market, diversity is more important than ever.
Financially, for the global economy, we need more people who are technologically educated, because there's a lot of jobs, they're very good jobs, and they also influence the design of things that are coming. And if women are not involved, it's not going to represent them.
Dupre agrees.
People don't have free access to it. For example, this could have...
After graduating this summer, she plans to move to New York City, where she will start a full-time software engineering position with Dropbox. Julie Tabo, VOA News, College Park, Maryland.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a good evening.